from my perspective, almost all of the descriptors of the red pill line up perfectly with Christian ethics. It's when you get into prescriptions that we start having troubles. So, for instance, I know you're infamous for this, right? But the have sex with 50 women thing, right?
Yeah.
Just so I make sure I don't get this position wrong, but I can give you like a counter example of what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Can you lay your position on that out?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would agree, right, that the dating marketplace has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Women have changed, right? They think they're equal to you, the egalitarian thing that we talked about before. So since the dating marketplace has changed significantly and women have more sexual experience now than ever before because they think they're men and they can have sex and have relationships just like men, etc., and be promiscuous and not deal with the same ramifications. What guys have to do is kind of go in and understand how women operate in today's day and age. And I think a good way to do that, right? Obviously, there's a multitude of ways, but one way to do it is obviously to have experience so that you're not getting into a relationship or a situation with a woman and you're not aware of her nature and you don't know how to deal with it. I kind of like, I like to use the analogy all the time. If you know you got a boxing match, right, in 5 years, right, with a very good and skilled opponent, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to play video games the whole time, or are you going to train and get ready for the biggest fight of your life, which I look at as marriage? Because
so it makes you worldly. Makes you worldly.
Yes.
Right? And
yeah.
I think we don't disagree that that's true.
Yeah.
The Christian ethics pushback to this would be,
of course.
But wait, you want, this is a requirement or something which is helpful to make you a high value man.
Yeah.
Well, this in turn would give this hoe value.
But I don't determine a guy's high valueness from having sex with a lot of girls. I think a man being deemed as high status or high value is from his effort and his merit that he develops on his own, and then the women are byproducts.
But he has experience now, and experience is going to help him be high value, right?
I wouldn't attribute him being, because there's guys that are high value that don't get girls. Like I wouldn't say like they're successful, they're smart, they're ambitious, etc., but they don't get girls.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't go out enough. Maybe they don't care to.
Oh, right. But they're more likely to get them if they want them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're in a better position.
Yeah.
They're because it's a byproduct. But my thing is, your value as a man is not attributed to the amount of girls that you have sex with. I just think it allows you to be a better test of character. You're better able to assess the character of women when you've dealt with them before, so that you don't get finessed out of the value that you created.
But wouldn't the entailment of that be that you're high value? Like the entailment of I have X amount of experience that helps me with my value. Like that's going to be a portion of that. And so kind of the rebuttal that we would have is we would say, okay, maybe
I just don't attribute like a man's sexual experience to him being high value. I think it helps him with assessing a partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. But him being high value is completely independent of having sex with a lot of girls. I think the women are a byproduct of his success.
Okay, so he is successful.
Yeah,
it's easier for him to get these chicks.
Yes,
right.
And I think if he's gonna go ahead and partake in women, he should have some experience. Is what I think,
Gotcha.
Especially when he's higher value and he has a lot to lose. But I'm not gonna sit. If I take two guys, right? Mm-hmm. One guy is making, one guy is wildly successful, etc., and another guy's wildly successful. One has a partner count of 1,000, the other one has a partner count of 0. To me, they're still both high value. Just one chose to use his value to attract way more women than another.
But would you make it a prescription then? Would you tell men you should do this? It's good for you to do this.
I think if you're going to go and be marriage-minded and try to find a girl to take seriously, you should have some experience.
Then that has to add to the value.
I don't think so, man.
I don't see how. If you're saying we want this thing, and this thing is to get married to a high-value woman, right? To somebody who you consider to be virtuous and good and this type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying that having sex with a multitude of partners is then going to up your chances of being able to do this thing, to accomplish this thing, then I don't see how it's not attributing to the value.
I completely, a man's value in him having sex, they're independent to me. Okay. I look at, like, you can be a virgin as a guy and still be a high value dude. Yep. Is how I look at it. I think the women are just a byproduct of your value.
But it is a prescription that you would make?
If you're, your prescription as far as, the 50 girls.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can be high value and not take that prescription.
Right, but you must see some value then in prescribing it.
More, and the value is from protecting your value. Does that make sense? So
Sure.
like,
That totally makes sense.
The value is you
but that's why I
protecting your
think if you're
value, but you don't need the women for that value.
Right, but I think that here's the entailment.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're prescribing, have sex with 50 women, okay, this is your prescription and the prescription has value, then whatever the hoes are that they're sleeping with, that's an entailment. So the hoe has to have value.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could call them like pawns.
I mean, they would be necessary for you to sleep with 50 women, right?
No, because not necessarily, because what ends up happening, because a lot of the girls, let's be honest, they'll be bimbos, stupid chicks, idiots, morons, lower status women.
But
maybe.
necessary for you to sleep with, so that you can, right?
I mean,
so that
if you can
follow
get
that
by,
prescription.
if you can get by, right, with less, sure. But I think a decent barometer is 50 in today's day and age, because it will put you in a position where you'll experience a multitude of different girls with different personality types, different behaviors, different red flags, different green flags, etc. So you'll have a general rubric of like, okay, these girls that go to the club all the time probably aren't good. I've dealt with like 3 of them now. Okay, these girls that go to that are from a sorority and maybe not so good. So like you kind of have an idea of like, all right, this is you get a generality of things.
Well, so to like the olive branch, the meeting you halfway. I would not say for a second that the more sexual experience you have and the more worldly you are, that you're not going to have experience in dealing with worldly women. There's no doubt. Or women who aren't worldly. You're still going to have experience in both. All I'm saying is that I think it's a logical entailment to say, I'm going to prescribe that you go sleep with, let's just say it's 20, right? It doesn't even have to be 50, 15, 10, 5. It doesn't matter. You and I both know the types of women those guys are going to be sleeping with are going to be easy women. And they're going to be low-value women. They're basically going to be hoes. So if that's the case, that the hoes are who they're going to be sleeping with, then we have now entailed that hoes have to have value, or else you couldn't sleep with them.
I think it's kind of a...
I mean, I think all women have inherent value, though, even hoes.
Yeah,
because like all females have some type of value because they're women. But as far as like attributing that value to yourself and taking her serious, I think that's a different thing. So you got to figure out which ones are, worth a relationship and which ones aren't. And I think the way to do that is through, obviously, experiencing
Now, from our view, from the Christian ethicist view,
sure,
they have no value. They only have human value.
Okay.
But they do not have, I would consider them at the lowest end of the...
If they're not virgins, like what
of the value hierarchy. Women who are very promiscuous and they see sex as a tool or as a utility or as a manipulation device or things like this. Instantly, the Christian ethicist is going to look at this and say, this is completely sinful, needs to stop, you're totally valueless, right? But your humanity is still very valuable. You as a person still very valuable. Your salvation is really important to us.
Yeah.
But this type of sinful behavior from our perspective is completely degrading to society, and we need to stop it by almost any means necessary, because what ends up happening, it's like an enclosed system. What ends up happening from my perspective is that degeneracy leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy.
Okay.
And there never seems to be a pull back. It's always a push forward. I mean, we're talking about shit now. You guys couldn't even imagine what we're talking about now with like transferees and all this different stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You couldn't have even fathomed
that. You call it? That's a new one.
Could you have even fathomed that we would be talking about child genital mutilation? I mean, who would ever have envisioned that this would be the world we live in?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if you back it up, if you look at kind of the slippery slope argument, quote unquote, that started with an LGBTQ push for equality, and once they have it, you have nothing else to complain about. You have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. Then you have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. And it becomes more and more and more absurd. And that's why you'll see the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way by necessity.
If I may, we're not arguing on a, I want to say, religious standpoint. It's more of a logical standpoint.
Sure.
Let's be honest here. You yourself, if you weren't versed in women, you can choose for yourself the wife you have today, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So on some level, we do need to have women as, I won't say pawns, I said pawns earlier, that's kind of wrong. I would say an experience booster to understand what I really want in my life or what I actually need. So I think on some level, you still need to have that like experience as a man, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your the Christian viewpoint, and I think all religions pretty much have, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they're all pretty much, hey, like sexual degeneracy. It's not in our best interest here from a religious standpoint, which I completely understand. That's why I'm when I dispense this advice, it's more from a it's a strategic standpoint of, okay, if you're not a religious guy, etc., right? Most women are not religious, right? They're just not, unfortunately. Most people are secular in today's day and age. So I look at it like, okay,
even the religious, even the religious are more secular.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. So like, so my thing, I look at it like, okay, though religion is great, and I think it's a great framework for people to operate in, unfortunately, we don't have those like training wheels anymore. So I think like for guys to really like move in this new sexual marketplace where, like you said before, these girls a lot of the times are fucking 304s. How's a guy that's been a virgin his whole life, super devout, has the rose-colored glasses on, doesn't know how women really move in today's day and age, how's he going to be able to tell if a girl really likes him or she's just selling him a dream, like, oh, I'm pure, etc.? Like, he won't know. Right now, of course, thank God there's content like this where we might be able to curb him having 50 bodies, and he might be able to only do 20, 30, 40. He might not need the full 50 because we're telling him, hey, this is what it is, right? They always say a smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from another person's mistakes. Yeah. Hell, on this show, we tell you guys our mistakes all the time. So people maybe are, with all this information, they're able to curb it, right? And learn from an earlier standpoint. But a lot of guys, what I've noticed is, a lot of guys are stupid. Let's just keep it 1,000. They got to fucking burn their hand on the kitchen stove to figure out that it's actually hot. And that's why the information is usual. It's like for the general masses. Are there smart guys out there that will figure this shit out with less? Of course. But I think for most guys, especially as hard-headed guys, with 50 chicks under your belt, man, you should at least be able to figure out the girls that are worth a relationship versus the ones aren't. And then most importantly, the girls that are trying to sell you a dream of, oh, I'm pure, etc., and you find out that they're at 304.
I have a question, Andrew. How would you solve this issue?
Solve the problem
of men finding
valuable
wives.
Yeah.
This is pretty complex. Okay, so
our adaptation is kind of like for today's day and age. If you're not like a religious guy, but what's your
so backing it off. Not gonna let you guys get away totally with this. So I'm bringing it back.
Okay, sure.
It's not a diversion, but I'm bringing it back. Okay,
sure.
Okay. So from a secular perspective, it can't be fixed. From a secular perspective, it can't be fixed. Secularists have no moral foundation at all. Like it or not, they don't. And it really can't be fixed. However, what I can point to is this. Let's assume for a second hypergamy is real, right? I assume that it is. Okay. I think generally speaking, there's enough evidence that we can look at and we can say hypergamy is at least it's real enough. Yeah. Right? It's real enough.
Agreed.
It used to be under control. It used to be under control.
Yeah. Religion used to put it under control.
Like it or not, we had that shit under control and under lock and key.
Religion, shame, families, fathers, all these things used to combat it. Yeah.
Secularism destroyed all that.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
When I say to people, and I understand the argument, we're never going back to that, but we are. We are going to go back to that, and I'm going to explain how. It's not going to be in our generation, but if you look at the birth rates, the global birth rates, they're in massive, rapid decline, and it's a problem most people have no idea about yet, how bad the population collapse is really going to be.
It's very bad, especially the Western countries.
But you know these stats. What age are women on average now getting married?
Into their late 20s, 30s now.
30 is the average age, right? Yeah. I think it's 31 is the average age last time I looked. How many kids are you going to have as a 31-year-old woman?
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
Well, these women are becoming quicker and quicker genetic dead ends, but so are secularists in general. If you look at the religious reproduce far and away more than secularists reproduce. Cross-generationally, this is going to become worse and worse and worse. As people leave the Protestant churches, they're moving towards Catholicism, Orthodoxy, more traditional churches. There's big pushes in those churches to have families and to have children and to reproduce. You know, the old, adage for Catholics, right? You know, if you don't have 10 kids, you have no kids, right? Reproduction is the future.
Yeah.
The religious reproduce, and secularists are not reproducing.
That's why London has been taken over by Muslims.
That's right. That's right. And if you look at, I'll only touch on this very briefly, but even if you look at Israel, Israel is the only westernized nation that has a reproduction rate that is stable. It's actually over what is necessary because they took one look at it and went, okay, we got to get these numbers up. How are we going to do that? So they implemented an in vitro fertilization program for free for the entire nation.
Really?
Yeah, for the whole nation. An in
Okay.
vitro fertilization. You can go have it done 12 times and they'll pay for everything
Interesting.
in order to keep those numbers up.
Okay.
Because they look around, they're like, we're surrounded by,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
everybody,
for that-
right?
yeah, it makes
We
sense why
better-
they would do it.
We better have a future army, right? We better have a future army.
yeah.
But the West has not rang the alarm bells just yet. They're just now talking about it in Congress.
Yeah.
But then what's another side effect of that? Your domestic population is not reproducing. How do you keep the number at 330 million? There's only one way to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be with immigration coming in.
Yeah.
And, well, that creates instability all on its own.
A lot of
And then what
problems.
happens if you start pulling in immigrants from other nations and they have a reproduction crisis,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at all the downsides of a coming population collapse, you can see that religion's going to make a pretty heavy comeback. And
think
you
so?
see it
Okay.
already being fought about now. Secular ethics can't offer people anything. It can offer them only hedonism, but ultimately it can't give people purpose. It just says go find your own purpose. But what the hell does that mean? That doesn't help anybody. How does that help people to tell them, well, just go find your own purpose? Like, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to find purpose, right?
Yeah.
That's what I came to church for, is to find purpose.
Yeah.
Secularists can't provide that.
So I agree with you, Andrew. I think in the future things will change. However, right now, what do you do?
Well, so right now you should try. I mean, this is me again. If I look at the historic trends, most men were never able to reproduce anyway. Okay, some 60, 70%.
Yeah.
They were never able to
You're only
reproduce
a minority.
ever. That's why we have double the female ancestors to male ancestors, right? I would still say that the best thing that you can do is to try to live an integrity-filled life, and that at the end of that life, regardless of how it went, right? Maybe you didn't get that hedonistic pleasure that you wanted, but neither did your ancestors. They didn't get that either. And I think hypergamy has always been this thing, this issue, and that women have been this way. We have Helen of Troy to look at. We have Samson and Delilah to look at. We know that this is the nature of women, but we also know that most men were never able to reproduce, ever. And most of the women that we have right now, if we have men going out and turning out hoes, if we have them going out and turning out hoes, doesn't that hurt the future men? You know what I mean? Who want to get lay down and marry these women? If we're going out and turning them out, that seems like it's counterproductive to me.
I see your perspective.
I could also argue though they've already been turned out. like no, they're already there. They already made.
Yeah, well, I
easy
mean, there
hoes.
had to be a ground zero. There was a ground zero penis somewhere.
Remember, you mentioned feminism and
Yeah.
the culture itself, the music.
Yeah.
They did all the work for them.
Yeah.
We just come in and hey.
Well, I mean, he said it earlier. Like, if you're going to continue to stay secular, it's never. Which
Never.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's never, and that's why because I'm looking at it like, okay, because I see, and I want to actually ask you how you think it'll go back to being a religious state. But let's assume that it's not, right? Let's assume that people are going to continue to live free and woo secularism, etc. I'm looking at it like, okay, there are guys out there that want a family. There are guys out there that want to one day, because I think the nuclear family is the backbone of any society, any thriving society. As a matter of fact, the reason why we're so fucked up now is because we don't have a lot of nuclear families anymore, right? When I was in UAE, for example, I saw strollers everywhere, families together, etc. I don't see that here. Hell, even in Miami, I see people walking dogs more than walking with kids.
Yeah.
So,
the little dogs too,
the little ones too, the
annoying
weird
dogs.
ones.
Yeah.
So I say all this to say I say all that to say this. For the guys out there that do want a family one day, etc., and I don't want them to get destroyed by the divorce machine, right? I'm like, okay, you want a family, you want a wife. This is very risky in 2024 with the way women are programmed,
Yeah.
right? So I think one way to deal with it is to have experience with women so you can at least rule out the bad ones. I'm not telling you to find the perfect girl, but at least be able to rule out the bad ones so that you can have a family with a chick and she won't destroy your life.
But what if
That's
there's,
the only reason.
What if there's a better way in marriage, though?
Sure, go ahead.
What about covenant marriage?
Okay.
What about using covenant marriage and the ecclesiastical authority of the church to govern the marriage, where you actually have communities? One of the big things that's missing from
Can you explain that to me? Because
yeah.
I'm not Christian, so.
Islam has their own form of ecclesiastical authority. They wouldn't call it that, okay? But in Muslim nations, they have Sharia law. Sharia courts will actually adjudicate marriages. They'll adjudicate all sorts of things from the religious authority.
Yeah.
Christians have always had this. We've always had an ecclesiastical authority. The Catholic Church has it. The Orthodox Church has it. The ecclesiastical authority is a way to govern your life and govern your marriage, exit the state. And you can enter into a covenant marriage And they do not just let you go. They do not just release you from your vow. And if you have community pressure, that's the social shame you're talking about.
Yeah.
What's going on right now?
I'm a fan of marriage without the state involved. I've talked about this.
And you should be.
Yeah.
Because what's happened instead is we have traded a good ecclesiastical foundation with community for this crazy-ass contract where it's easier to break than a cell phone contract.
Yeah.
And women have all the incentive in the world to break it.
Yeah.
Why in the world would we ever endorse, from a Christian perspective, to get involved in a secular marriage? That's the worst idea on planet Earth. We should be recommending covenant marriages through the church, governed through the church and those communities, your own community.
Gotcha.
That's where you get the social shame. That's where you get the pressure.
Yeah.
That's where, because right now, if you go and you involve yourself in a secular marriage, you go to the courthouse, you get married tomorrow.
Yeah.
Where's the community?
Yeah.
Where's the support structure? Maybe your family, maybe not.
TikTok.
Yeah.
It's just you and her against the world. That's insane.
It is.
You know what I mean? You have children, you have financial woes. You got to have a community.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a reason why the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child." That's why, because, and shame is a very powerful thing. And I agree with you, because we've talked about this. If you're going to get married, we always tell guys, if you're going to get married, do it through. Don't make sure the state's not involved, right? Go if you're a Muslim, go ahead and just get married at the mosque
Or by the church.
or by the church. I wasn't aware. What's it called? Ecclesiastic.
Yeah.
Basically by the church, basically.
Yeah. The
Okay.
church.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
And if you have marital problems, you go to the church.
yeah, and I think that's a fantastic way to get around it. You know what I mean?
And you should.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the most successful marriages in the United States, you want to know what some of the most successful ones are? Mormon marriages.
For sure.
Why?
Yeah.
The Mormons have their own
Community.
church authority and community
Yeah,
that
community.
applies significant social pressure. They're like, no, you don't get to just do your husband like this. You don't get to just do these types. Oftentimes, they don't even involve the state at all.
Yeah.
State's not even, you get married within the community in the eyes of God, because that's what marriage is. Marriage has nothing to do with a state contract.
Yeah.
The state should only be involved in things which are good for the entirety of the nation. Marriage is now not good. And that's terrible. That's an awful position to be in, to have the state promoting something as toxic as marriage through the state now is. It's a raw deal for men. It's a bad deal even for women, ultimately, because they have the incentive to do it, and then they seem to regret it. They take years of regretting this, and it's like, if we're going to change this, fine. But let's actually move towards that, towards actually changing these laws, actually moving against the laws. And where the tradcons get it wrong is they refuse to engage with the red pillars, saying, listen, we're getting destroyed. Men are just getting destroyed out here. They're getting wrecked everywhere, right? And you hear their stories over and over again. And I see these guys in the Daily Wire, they're like, well, you could get lucky. You might get lucky.
One of these days.
I got lucky. Look at me. I got lucky.
Yeah.
Look at him. He got lucky too.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's stupid advice. Why would you ever give advice like that? Instead of looking at the problem objectively and saying, look, there's really nothing inside of our religious purview that says that we shouldn't be pushing back against state authority for marriage, since we consider it to be in the eyes of God, not in the eyes of the state. That's what we should be pushing for. That's what the traditional conservative side is supposed to be pushing for. Religious institutional marriage, forget the state. Totally worthless.
Well, so if we're doing that, then I look at it like, okay, well, let's say you make a bad mistake. Let's say you don't have the 50 body count. You got 5, right? Or maybe you're a virgin. You get married to a chick. You didn't know that she was a 304 before. And then she goes ahead and, breaks up with you and, breaks your heart and shit like that. Well, at least you can get out of it now where you don't owe a bunch of money
That's right.
to her or whatever it may be. That's one way. But, again.
It's also when you have a church backing you, right? That's a heavy force. People forget the institutional power and community power churches have. And community shame is brutal.
Yeah.
It is brutal. And you have some churches, they have, serious institutions. It's the last institutional authority of the right, and we don't use it for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, my thing is, because when I give my advice, I'm like, all right, I'm assuming they're not Christian, they're not devout, they're going to get with a chick that isn't Christian, not devout, they're secular, etc. So I'm like, okay, that's how most young people identify nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? We don't live in a Christian society anymore, unfortunately, right?
We do not.
We don't. So I'm looking at it like, okay, this is how you deal with the new normal. Is it optimal? Should you be running out there and trying to fuck 50 girls in general? Well, no, because well, yes and no, because chasing after girls, I've always said this, going after women inevitably puts you in a situation where you're not fucking productive. You're fucking texting girls all the time. You're going out on dates. You're going to nightclubs. You're
spending
maybe
money and
consuming alcohol, you're spending
resources,
money. You're
yeah.
spending resources. Like the pursuit of women in itself is extremely labor intensive. So, yeah, it's annoying. But like I look at it like I'd rather you do this work up front, know how women are, then you do all this work, make yourself high value, then you have the time finally to go ahead and date, and then you go ahead and you date, you find a girl, she's really a whore, but she sells you a dream, you go ahead, you get married to this girl, and then bam, next thing you know, state's taking half your money. But with what you said, okay, we're getting married only through the church or through a mosque or whatever, and you are not incentivized to leave me.
Right.
Well, I could meet in the middle ground there because the guy isn't going to be destroyed. But knowing that most guys are going to do what? Their dumb ass going to go to the church. Sure, I'll go ahead and sign here so you can have half the money because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Because that's what most fucking guys are going to
Yeah.
do, right?
It depends on what we're pushing them towards.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
if they're going to do that, right, and go through because let's be honest, a lot of modern day women, they won't accept getting married just by the church or just by a mosque. They want the security
Yeah.
that comes with
But wouldn't that be a red flag?
state-sanctioned manner. That's true.
But wouldn't
would
that be the red
that'd
flag
be a
where you're
huge red
like,
flag.
wait, you won't get married to the church? I thought you loved me.
Yeah. You're right. But dude, see, the thing is that we're having a higher IQ conversation here at the table because we're able to understand this.
Yeah.
Most guys are fucking idiots, man. Let's keep it 1,000. They're fucking idiots. They're like, pussy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sign the contract. Like, it's crazy the things that guys will do for women. It's fucking scary, man. Like, I do some of these consultations with these guys, and they say what they've done for women, etc. And looking back to, like, I'm an idiot, 2020 hindsight now, etc. But when you're in love with a girl or you don't know better or whatever, like, these guys really put themselves in very dangerous situations with these women. So I'm like, fuck, like, if you guys are going to do this and sign your life away and go to a courthouse and marry this chick that you know has all these red flags, like, goddamn, at least have some experience, man, before you go into the slaughterhouse. So that's how I look at it. But I agree with you, man. If we can go back where guys can go ahead and get married through the church or the mosque and there's no incentive for the woman to leave them, yeah, fuck yeah.
See,
My only other pushback then really
Sure.
is when I think, because you and I both know, probably all of us at the table know, like high value man is kind of a nebulous term. Don't know exactly what that means, but I think
Very nebulous.
I think heuristically we know.
Yeah,
right.
it's very nebulous.
So we can be like, you know, a guy purports himself well, has enough money to take care of himself, handles his responsibilities, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think we kind of know it when we see it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fair. But when I think of high value too, I institute things like virtue. I think of virtues. I think of integrity, virtue ethics. Those are the things that I would consider to be high value as well. Some stoicism thrown in there, maybe.
Okay. All right.
The only drawback, even for secularists, because you can get secularists to move towards virtue ethics. They may reject God, they may reject religion, but they will act as though religion is real if you give them some foundation like virtue ethics. And so the only drawback I really see, even from the secular side of telling them, hey, this will make you worldly, that's going to hurt their virtue. It's going to ultimately hurt their virtue to basically kind of man whore around, right? And that's something that later in life, reflectively, when they're 40 or 50, they might look back on and be like, hey, look, you know, I was not living a high integrity lifestyle.
Yeah. So when it comes to so your pushback is what because it lacks the virtue is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no virtue in promiscuity for men or women. I think you would agree with that even as a secularist, that you said yourself, sleeping with a ton of women in and of itself is not a virtuous act. Maybe you think it's neutral, right? But it certainly has no virtue.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But for women, right, it has a really bad side effect that doesn't even have for men. And because of the gatekeepers of sex, there's even less virtue.
I agree.
But it takes two to tangle. And so anybody who's going to have sex with one of these women, they're going to be taking away from the virtue of themselves and the woman. And for me, when I look at men of status, real men of status, who maintain their virginity, like I met a gentleman named Mason when I was on whatever. Dude, square jawed, real strong guy. He maintained his virginity. He didn't seem like he was unaware of female nature to me, but I can understand that probably plenty are, right?
Yeah.
But he seemed like a really virtuous guy. You know what I mean? And there is some kind of integrity to that when you meet a man who has tons of virtue, you'll follow him off a building, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that keeping virtue intact is another thing which in Western society we should be pushing towards.
Understandable.
Even from a secular framework, that seems to be more optimal. You know what I mean?
Understandable. Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously ideal. I just think with the way things are, for a guy to be able to find that virtuous woman, he's got to deal with some women that aren't virtuous. And the only way he's going to do that is through experience. I'm looking at it more from like a preventative standpoint, where it's like,
well, it's pragmatic.
Yeah,
right?
for in today's day and age, right? If women weren't the way they are now, I would tell guys, stay a virgin.
Yeah.
Like, fucking wait, man. Like, exercise that discipline. But nowadays, with just the way women are, it's like you almost get punished for being that nice guy and being extremely virtuous and nice to these girls, because they don't reward that anymore. Like, chivalry is dead, and I genuinely think modern day women killed it. So it's like, though I think that's optimal and the best way to go about it, I just don't think it's practical or pragmatic in today's day and age, is my only issue.
Well, I mean, the problem is there's a lot of truth in what you say.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a firm believer in accepting what is objective reality. It is objective reality that promiscuity inside of Western nations is now out of control, to the point where reining it back in seems like almost a fool's errand. But I also think that if we can provide any pushback to move it the right direction, we should.
Yeah. I mean, and now I'm actually like, brainstorming here how we would do that. The only way we would do it is, you would have to make a religious state to do it, because quite frankly,
at least give a religious option, right? And let the religious govern it as synergy. So the nations of old had a synergistic relationship.
Yeah.
It was not that the state was run by the church, just that the state worked with the church.
Yeah.
Why should the state govern marriage?
So you're not a fan of separation of church and state then?
Well, not a separation. I think, though, that we should not necessarily live in a state which is controlled by the church, but has a synergistic relationship.
Okay.
Your population needs to have some moral foundation, right? You can't have people who, even patriotism itself used to be a big deal in the United States, right?
Yeah.
That was a unifying force. So there's all kinds of propaganda towards patriotism, right? It was everywhere.
Yeah.
There was American flags, and, the patriotic messaging was everywhere. And it's a subtle form of brainwashing, which unifies people through an ideology.
Yeah.
Religion does the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can push any kind of synergy with the church, you don't have to make the.
But how would we get the young people to do that? Because my thing is, so I see your perspective and I see your vision. I agree with you that religion absolutely curbs a lot of this bullshit. The problem is, how are you going to get the young people to accept it? Like, how are you going to get the young people to
the same way that the leftists did it?
Okay.
Through moving through institutions as quickly as we possibly can and adjusting our propaganda at the national level. The propaganda I want to see at the national level sounds like this. Get married young. Have 1 million children, because we're going to tax exempt you from life. For life. You'll be tax exempt for life. 3 kids, right? We're going to make it really hard for you to get a divorce because the state's getting out of it. You can only get married through your church. The state's not even going to offer a marriage certificate. We don't need to anymore, because our job is to push towards the health and welfare of the United States. And this is no longer healthy for the United States to have marriage through the state. It has become so bad that people who enter it, your likelihood of exiting clean is almost 0%, right?
Yeah.
So
impossible.
You can do the same thing. You can have national rhetoric, national brainwashing campaigns, right? Just the other direction. Now, brainwashing has a negative connotation.
So how are you
going
to override? And this is just like, I genuinely want to get your opinion on this. How do we override the Cardi B's, the Sexy Reds, the ridiculous music, the ridiculous social media addiction that a lot of young people have, the TikTok twerking, the OnlyFans culture that we have, the sex work? I would argue nowadays, like, young women are more inspired by sex workers than anything else, right? Like, if you ask a young, attractive girl, who's your role model? And we've done it on the podcast a bunch of times. Who do they say? Kim K.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Like, that's what they aspire to be like
and
now.
It's like, it's sickening to listen to.
So it's like, how are we going to override?
Here's how you do it.
All the degenerate propaganda has been put out there.
Muslims are fantastic at this.
Yeah.
And Christians are not. Muslims engage. What I've noticed about Muslims is they engage. They engage in ideology, man. They engage in political prescriptions, and they're in your face about it. Christians have become soft and too nice. We have adopted Christianity to be a be nice religion, and it never was a be nice religion.
It's passive.
It's supposed to be a get in your face religion. It's supposed to be a no, you're wrong. You fucking skank, you're wrong, and you're a liar, and you're destroying the very fabric of society. But we don't see that engagement from Christians anymore because it's been so subverted by women saying, no, be nice.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is, instead of theological debates going on all over the place between Christian versus Christian, and I'd like to see more Christians actually move into the political space, like I have. You even see guys like Fuentes did this. They move into the political space and they fight that way. They push back using Christianity ideologically through politics. And that's become very popular. Suddenly it starts picking up steam. You start hearing about things like Christian nationalism. You start hearing about Christian hierarchies and all these different ideas, not because we're having obscure theological debates, but because we're getting in your face politically. We're saying, no, Christians aren't passive. No, Christians aren't sissies. No, Christians aren't supposed to just sit there while secularists rule us. That is a huge misinterpretation that people have, that secularists are somehow better off having power than the religious. That's insane. Secularists are not good at wielding power. They have no moral grounding from which to wield it. So if we really want to see change, instead of trying to get into Christian apologetics in order to have theological debates and theological discussions, get into Christian politics and go get in their face. And that, I think, will have more of a result in society than people can imagine. Is it going to happen overnight? No. Is it going to be cross-generational? Yeah. But I'd rather see people push that direction.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that you don't foresee this happening like in our generation. Or when do you foresee this like happening? Because
it took the left about 3 generations to completely infiltrate all of our institutions. It's going to take us about 3 generations to infiltrate them ourselves. We have to get involved again in culture. We have to be confrontational. And
we're talking 60 to 100 years then.
Probably 60 years.
Yeah.
But that's a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
It's a blink of the eye. You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe we can't save them all, right? But we can at least start the process. And it's like, I would rather start the process and start moving that direction and be realistic with the outcome, right? The most beautiful churches in the world took 300, 400, 500 years, 1,000 years to build. They were cross-generational projects.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not saying that we can save men right now. That would be absurd. What I am saying, though, is that men can save themselves by working towards that goal.
Yeah, religion's always been a very good way to increase productivity. Obviously, keep your head on straight, avoid a bunch of stupid shit. Luckily, if you got discipline, you can avoid it. Being an alcoholic or doing drugs and doing all those stupid shit. But yeah, I mean, religion absolutely helps a lot of people when it comes to that. It's just that I look at it like, damn. Are people gonna because I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Personally, I think it's gonna continue to get even. Yep. I think women are gonna continue to be even. I think it's gonna be like right now. It's cool to be a sex worker as a chick. Like you got young people nowadays, right? Yeah, boys and girls saying I want to be an influencer, right? For the girls, I want to be an influencer that's sexualizing myself. For the guys, they want to be a moronic idiot that's on Twitch running around doing stupid shit. So it's like. It's the youth is like just brainwashed, and then you compound that with the music, with TikTok, with with the pornography, the ubiquitousness of ubiquity of pornography.
Everywhere.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah. So it's like I look at it like fuck, like okay, how's the guy gonna navigate this nowadays? Like religion ain't gonna save you from these hoes right now. Maybe in like you said, in 2 to 3 generations.
But you know what saves men though? A mission.
Absolutely, I agree.
What saves men is a mission.
Yeah.
And if you give men a direction and they know that they're collectively working towards that mission, man, it's incredible how much men can achieve even with a small collective and a mission and an ideology.
I agree.
And that's why I'm like, push that. Well, for me, you know what I mean? I'm going to push that. I'm going to push that direction. And it's been so successful in days past. And we've just forgotten we have our own institution too. The church. We have our own institutional power, and we can push back, but we have to get in their face. We have to stop pretending that Christianity is a be nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what is your strategy? Because like you got gay pastors now, you got female pastors.
You get in their face.
You got all
go
this
confront
stuff.
Them.
Like
you ask these guys, just like what happened with TPUSA when they asked them the question of all questions. How is it that your LGBTQ push in conservatism is helping us win the culture war? And they had no answer to it, right? By the way, stroke of political genius that happened, okay? They got in their face. They said, no, this is not part of Christian ethics. This is not part of our grounding foundation. What are we trying to conserve here? And that type of thing, I think, has more of a value to general society than any other single thing men could be doing.
Yeah, I mean,
hold on. I've got a question for you, bro,
Sure.
because I'm listening this whole time.
Yeah.
I believe you're on the right track here, 100%. But I also come from a Christian background.
Yeah.
I believe what you're saying is true, 100%. Only the issue here is that, like, the church itself is not without fault, you know? I think the church itself is wayward. It's gone all the way left. Now, granted, how do you fix the issue at hand? It starts with the church. But the Pope himself, other pastors that are funded by the government themselves, are all to the left. How do you fix that?
I'll explain. You are correct, especially in Catholicism, this is true. But you know what's interesting about the Catholic Church, and I'm an Orthodox myself, not Catholic.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is you have, for the first time in an organization that I've seen, which is involved in politics, you have top-down instead of bottom-up corruption. Usually it's corruption from the bottom, which goes up to the top, and then the top stays corrupt, right? In this case, a lot of Catholics are base, man. I mean, they're pretty awesome. They're the grounding foundation of Catholicism. They're the money givers. They're the tithers.
Yeah.
They're the people who are making the Catholic Church possible to begin with. And it's like, it's really easy to go to those people and say, stop tithing. Stop tithing if they're going to go towards this, you know, this type of agenda. Stop feeding the money to them. That's how you get at Catholicism, because the bottom's not corrupt. The top is corrupt. You can go for the clergy, and the clergy can vote with their wallet. And man, if you starve an institution of money, what happens, right? That's what they do to creators, right? They don't like what you say, they starve you of money, and that shuts you up. And it's the same thing with any organization. It's the same thing within Orthodoxy. It's the same thing within Protestantism. Cut off the money supply until they reform to what they're supposed to be. And it's like the Catholic Church, much harder, because the corruption does go up to the top, in my opinion. Okay, but still the grounding foundation of most Catholics, they're pretty awesome. Most of them are pretty awesome people. And it's like, I don't think it would take too much to begin to push them to say, stop tithing that way until, you know, some of this stuff goes by the wayside.
Who are they going to follow? You or the Pope?
Well, they're going to follow the Pope for the most part, but some of them are so frustrated with what's going on with papal authority or papal authority that I don't think it would take much, right? I'm not saying that one man's going to be able to push the whole tide. What I'm saying is that you can begin at least to do your own part to move people towards that. Not saying one guy's going to be able to do it. That's absurd. Though single people have been able to do things like this in the past, I think that everybody moving towards it in their own way, trying their hardest in their own way to move towards that. That's how you see things get done.
I like that. I would just say, though, tell me if you understand this phrase: right will be wrong, wrong will be right in these times.
Right will be wrong and wrong will be right. Yeah. So, but that's all times.
But even more so now.
Well, more so than when. So if you look at history, if we're going to get into theology, right? Everything that is to come to pass has already come to pass.
Yes.
Right. Could be way worse in 100 years, and it may have been way worse 200 years ago. Right. Ultimately, I'm not going to look at it though and say, hey, we're in the end times right this second, so I'm just going to throw in the towel and throw my hat on the couch and I'm done. No, I'm going to still act within the ethical purview of which I've been given, and I'm gonna, if Jesus comes tomorrow, right, and it was all for nothing, then it was all for something. So that's the way I see it.
I like it. Good man.
No, I mean, you did say it's a multi-generational thing, which I think, it's gonna take a while. It's just that I think, like, with the way things are now, us being in a secular society, etc. And I know you disagree with me on the 50 body count, which is totally fine. I think that's important for you to be able to have a conversation with people that you disagree with.
Sure.
I think it's a viable strategy given the environment that we're in now, with the way women are, with the way the marriage institute is set up in the United States, with the state being involved, etc. And let's be honest, most guys are not going to get married through a religious counterpart that's going to protect them and not incentivize the woman, because most women nowadays are like, if I'm going to get married, I need a marriage certificate. I need all this stuff. I mean, hell, you can't even tell a girl nowadays that you want a prenup without issues, right? So it's like, I think with knowing that most guys are going to get married through the state, it's like, all right, you're going to go through this route, then you need to be prepared. Because I think it's the most important boxing match of your life. You need to train, because that girl's definitely been training when she was going through college and being at the 304 and smashing dudes and all this other stuff.